approximately $600. You're probably wondering, what exactly is the empathy belly? It's a strictly external garment with no mechanical or electrical parts. This multi-component weighted garment consists of 2 pregnant breasts weighing 2 pounds each, a lung constrictor belt, and a water-filled vinyl belly which weighs 15 pounds. The empathy belly also simulates the fetus in its movements with 2 2-pound suspended weights inside the belly. 2 5-pound weights are added as fetal limbs, and the fetal head, which presses against the bladder, weighs 4 pounds. The total weight of the garment is 35 pounds and will, through accurate simulation, enable the wearer to experience more than 20 of the typical symptoms and effects of pregnancy. After only 10 minutes of wearing the belly, it causes several common discomforts associated with pregnancy. Some of the internal effects include continuous pressure on the bladder, increased body temperature, blood pressure, and pulse, and mild fetal kicking movements. External effects include awkwardness, shortness of breath, discomfort, backaches, and a shift in the center of gravity. The empathy belly was originally created to promote feelings of appreciation in the husbands of pregnant women, because most expectant fathers feel a natural sense of frustration, detachment, and curiosity while watching their partners endure pregnancy. The empathy belly has had a tremendous impact in this area. In Linda Ware's prenatal education classes, she puts expectant fathers through a series of exercises. Wearing the belly, they practice walking, sitting down in deep, soft chairs, rising from these chairs, and lying down. They are also made to pick up items from the floor and tie their shoes. By experiencing the symptoms of pregnancy, men realize firsthand that their wives' complaints are genuine and that pregnancy requires significant effort and adjustment for a woman. Statistics show that in the weeks following these exercises, husbands offer more emotional support, back rubs, and dinners out. Although the empathy belly was originally created to increase feelings of empathy in expectant fathers, its most important use now is in the field of teenage sex education. Used as a hands-on teaching device, it quickly shatters romantic illusions about pregnancy. Live demonstrations with the belly gets kids' attention and generates spontaneous, open discussion. By wearing the empathy belly in their high school sex education classes, teenagers can realize firsthand the demands pregnancy would impose on their lifestyles. Former Director of Education for the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Peter Scales, states, "Despite my 15 years in the field of human sexuality, I have never come across anything with quite as much impact as the empathy belly. I think it would be a marvelous resource to use in sex education programs, health, and life skills courses for teenagers. There is no substitute for actually feeling what goes on during pregnancy, but the empathy belly gives enough of a glimpse that young men may wake up to their role a little bit more because of it." Through skillful use of the empathy belly, teenagers can really begin to see why the demands of pregnancy require maturity, commitment, and responsible support systems between partners. The empathy belly is highly recommended by doctors as a pregnancy prevention tool and as a teaching device. Patricia Wilkins, Chief of the Office of Public and Health Services in Washington State, hailed the empathy belly, saying, "It is clear to me that those of us involved in the field of social and health services, particularly those of us concerned with the terrible phenomena of children having children, must find dramatic methods to turn things around. Tools are so very scarce. The empathy belly has emerged as one which is both innovative and powerful." Robert Thompson, clinical instructor for the University of Washington, says of this new device, "An obstetrician and father of 2 children, I have personally had the benefit and experience of wearing the empathy belly. It is my professional opinion that it would be an extremely beneficial educational tool for use with expectant fathers, teenagers in sex education programs, medical and nursing students, and the medical practices of obstetricians and family practitioners." It seems that the invention of the empathy belly will allow us to take a giant step forward in increasing the understanding and awareness of the trials and tribulations of pregnant women. Whether it is being used with adults in family planning courses or with teenagers in sex education programs, the empathy belly greatly increases the teaching impact on its wearer. And it's now possible for women to keep their husbands barefoot and pregnant.
Murphy once said, anything that can go wrong will. I'd like you to meet a living example. This poor lady can't even go to the supermarket without having a major mishap. Laughing Wild by Christopher Durand. I want to talk to you about life. It's just too difficult to be alive, isn't it? And to try to function? I mean, there's all these people to deal with. I tried to go to the supermarket the other day to buy a can of tuna fish, and there was this person standing right in front of where I had to grab to reach the can of tuna fish. I waited a while to see if they'd move, and they didn't. They were looking at tuna fish too, but they were taking a real long time at it, reading the ingredients on each can like it was a book or something. And so I waited a long while, and they didn't move. I thought of maybe asking them to move, but then they seemed so stupid not to have sensed that I needed to get by them that they probably would have said, "We'll move when we're good and ready." And then what would I have done? So I started to cry out of frustration, quietly, as though not to disturb anyone. And still, even though I was softly sobbing, this person did not grasp that I needed to get by them. So I got really mad, and I made a fist, and I hit him over the head, and I said, "Would you kindly move, jerk?" And he fell to the ground, and he looked quite startled. And this child nearby started crying, and I was still crying, and I really couldn't see making use of tuna fish right now. So I ran out into the street, and I thought, I'll take a taxi to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I need to be surrounded by culture right now, not tuna fish. So I raised my hand for this taxi that was coming, and this terrible man who came out into the street after I was already there raised his hand, and the taxi stopped for him because he saw him first. The injustice of it made my eyes start to well with tears again. So I lost that cab. And the next 3 cabs were already full, one of which still had on its free light, which really made me mad, because if it hadn't had it on, I probably wouldn't have raised my arm, which was getting quite sore by now. I think hitting the man with the tuna fish used some muscles I wasn't used to using. So anyway, this other taxi started to get near, and this lady came out of the grocery store with some groceries and started to hail my cab. I walked right over to her and I said, "If you take my taxi from me, I'll kill you!" And she looked at me quite startled. And the taxi stopped and I got in, and I said, "I need to go across town to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I've had a terrible time at the grocery store." And this taxi driver, who was Greek or something, says, "I have to go downtown now. I'm about to get off work." I thought, I won't even leave. And he says, "Lady, please, I have to go home to my family." So I thought, I won't even move. I'll just sit here, and maybe, eventually, he will decide it is easier to take me to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Although, I started to think, maybe I didn't want to go there anyway. I was hungry for starters. Maybe a movie with some popcorn and a Diet Coke. But then what movie would I see? And before I could ask him for recommendations, he pulls out into traffic in a big hurry. He made me kind of lurch in my seat. And so I yelled to him, "I've changed my mind. I want to see a movie." And he said he was taking me to the police station. So when he stopped at the next stoplight, violently, I might add, there is probably something wrong with my back. Anyway, I jumped out and I yelled at him, "Your mother is an absolute jerk!" And he took off in a big hurry, and he almost ran over my feet. But luckily, I fell backwards into the gutter. And then this street musician comes along, right? And he asked me if I wanted help. And I said, "No, but could you play Melancholy Baby?" Which I thought was kind of a funny remark under the circumstances. But he didn't laugh at my comment about Melancholy Baby. He looked at me quite seriously, and asked me if I needed help. And I said, "You really don't want to know, do you?" And then he asked me if I would like help getting up, or if I like to stay seated in the gutter all day. And I thought, I don't know the answer to that question. So I told him, "I don't know the answer to that question. Why don't you ask me another?" And then he said that if I needed help, he'd be playing his guitar in front of the ladies' shelter. People with opinions usually act like they know what should be done about something. I think that's Herbis. Do you know what Herbis is? It's conceit. Thinking you're as good as the gods. I guess everybody in this country has Herbis. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to take all the unwanted children in America and send them to Mother Teresa. She said one time in some interview that anyone who didn't want their children should just send them to her. I would love to see her trying to put up with 3,000 screaming little infants for days on end. I'd hope she'd take back saying such a goody-goody, disgusting thing. I really hate Mother Teresa, don't you? I mean, what makes her such a saint? Tell me, are you enjoying my company? Or do you wish I'd go away? I can never tell. It's one of my downfalls in life. Tell me, are you identifying with me in some way? Do you get what I need? Would you give me a job? I can't believe you would. Because I've tried to change my life. I have. I've called people on the phone, and I've screamed to them, "Let me babysit with your children! I promise I won't kill all of them!" But they don't give me a job. And I've called the editors at Doubleday and Knob and at St. Meriden's Press, and I've told them over the phone, "I can't type, and I'm too unstable to read, but if you give me a job as assistant editor, I'm sure I'd become more stable." Huh? What do you say? But do you think they hire me? If you think so, raise your hand. I want some audience participation here. Raise your hand. Well, that's better. And that's right. The answer is no. Here is the key to existence. Did you hear me? I said here is the key to existence. When I tell you this, you will know if you've been living your life to the full. And if you haven't, you'll immediately know how to change that state of affairs. Are you ready for me to tell you? Oh, dear. I built that one up too much. I can't help it. It's what I got from that EST training. Always breathe. That's it. That's the basics of life. If you don't breathe, you die. That seemed much more impressive if you hadn't slept in 2 days. If you're rested, it doesn't seem quite as important. But try to hold on to it. Let me summarize what I've told you, and then I'll leave. I had a terrible time at the grocery store trying to buy a can of tuna fish. I got in an argument with my taxi driver. I just love street musicians. I hate Mother Teresa. I'm opposed to Herbis. And I've learned that you should always breathe. Even if I stop, you keep breathing. In and out, in and out. People cope with dying in many manners. Some face it bravely, some with fear. Others just try to ignore it. But in the end, death will win, and the loved ones must cope with the loss. Clear Glass Marbles by Jane Martin.